If you don't like this video, you're going to get bonked. Chuchu Pan Lunch quickly became one of Witch from Mercury's most popular characters for a variety of reasons. So of course I jumped on the chance to get her custom Demitrainer, provided to me by my favorite online hobby store, Hobbyling Japan. Links to buy your own down below. Or don't, you filthy Spatian. In the looks department, we're getting a very interesting mix between 30-minute missions and Vodoms, with some Gym 3 and Zaku elements peppered in there as well. Especially when you take into account that this was an older generation Demitrainer, kinda like the Zaku 1, that was then upgraded to be on par with the newer Demitrainers. And fortunately, this model kit feels anything but old. We've got some really nice clear green parts for the visor and targeting scope, and the only stickers that we're getting are 3 metallic green ones. 2 for the scope of the gun, and 1 for the sensor on the chest. Just grab some gray paint for the wheels on the bottom of the feet and you're golden. And things are equally great when it comes to the seam lines, because there's virtually none. The only ones you will see are the ones that are disguised as extra details. And talking about extra details, the design of the Demitrainer is very simple, so for the design of the model kit, we actually have some extra details, but without going overboard, so I really appreciate the extra stuff. So things are looking very good for this thing straight out of the box. An interesting design with some extra detailing, almost no need for paint, and no seam lines to get rid of. Unfortunately, what you will have to deal with for complete accuracy are some hollow parts. They're on the back of the knee joints, the elbow joints, and of course, the bottom of the feet. Accessories then are really simple. In addition to the head-mounted beam Vulcan guns, the only other weapon that it has is the large beam rifle, or the sniper rifle as I like to call it. Because not only does it look like one, but it was also designed for long-range hit-and-run tactics. The only problem here is the arm connecting it to the waist. It does move a bit, but not nearly enough to replicate the poses you'd want this thing to make. For example, I just straight up had to disconnect the arm to replicate the box art. Both of the handles can also rotate around, and the whole thing is connected to the backpack through a bendable wire that goes into a piece that can also rotate around. Or, if you'd want, you can also remove the whole gun assembly and the backpack to turn it into a slightly more stock Demitrainer. For example, in order to attach it to a standard Demitrainer. And another really cool thing you can do is store the rifle on the backpack. You're not supposed to do this, but I think it looks really cool. And finally, we also get an extra pair of open hands. And here we get a glass half full or half empty situation. As you might have noticed, the top of the hands isn't color accurate, which normally would be a bad thing, but unlike some other hands, the tops of the closed and open hands can be freely interchanged, so you could just look at this as an extra color option. So moving on to the articulation of this machine. It might not look like it, but the head is actually on a ball joint, although upwards and downwards movement is not really on the menu. What will move up and down is this extra handlebar on the head that is somewhat hindered by the commander antenna, but if you want, you can push it all the way back to have it open up. Then on the shoulders, we get some more ball joints for really nice forwards movement. We have 2, one on the inside and then one right there. And of course, these are also going to help very nicely with the upwards movement. The arms will rotate around all the way, bend at the elbow on only a single joint, but it does go slightly more than 90 degrees. And then we get an interesting extra rotation right there. And I did also notice when I was building this thing, well, when I just put it together, that moving the hands, there we go, the ball joints of the hands are pretty tight in there and will sometimes cause this to move as well. So it has arm ball joints, will rotate around, wiggle around, and do everything a ball joint does. And then on the other arm, this shield is on a nice hinge and ball joint combo, allowing it to move completely out of the way. Then on the other arm, this shield is on a hinge and ball joint combo, allowing it to move completely out of the way of the upwards movement, making it equally as mobile as the other arm. And then the waist is where things get really interesting with this thing. On the top, we have a single ball joint for some pretty damn good forwards and backwards and sideways movement. We have a peg that takes care of the rotation movement, and because it isn't hindered whatsoever, it moves around all the way. And then we have a really interesting joint that is held together by the back skirt. So by clicking this loose, you get some extra forwards movement that is then again locked in place by the back skirt. So you can achieve some really good forwards movement with those two joints. Moving on to the legs then, the front skirts are molded together, but you can separate them if you want to. Legs will go pretty nicely forwards, and the backwards movement, well, normally it's like that, but as I just showed you, you can move that back skirt, allowing the legs to go equally far backwards as they go forwards. As for the sideways movement then, as you can already tell, there are no side skirts to speak of, so yeah, that is pretty damn good. Then they'll rotate around all the way, and at the knees we again get some nice joints. They'll bend at 2 joints, and then this rail can go up and down, and the extra thrusters on the sides of the legs can also rotate. The feet then are where things get significantly less good. The ankle guard is on a little ball joint, but not gonna move around too much, and then the forwards and backwards movement is all taken care of by the single toe joint that is also a ball joint, so that is not all that much. Instead, what this thing seems to focus on is the really good sideways movement. And then we also have a little bit of rotation. And finally on the backpack, well, nothing moves. Oh, and just in case anyone is wondering, no, the wheels don't move. So overall, most of the articulation is par for the course for a modern high grade, but the lack of forwards and backwards movement of the ankles is definitely going to make you want to buy an action base for more elaborate poses. It also really gets in the way of nice driving poses. So as always, the inevitable question is, do you want to buy this? And well, it is a neat design. The pilot is great, and I love the gun, but it has those little issues with the hollow parts and the quite static ankles that keep me from wholeheartedly recommending it. I think I might be spoiled by the age grunts that I've recently built. For 1,400 yen, you can do worse, but you can also do a whole lot better, and this quickly becomes apparent when we move on to the size comparisons. Here it is next to the high-grade Gundam Ariel and the Beggar Bow, both of which have significantly better ankles and less hollow parts. And while the Beggar Bow is 1,600 yen, the Ariel is actually cheaper at only 1,300. And that is despite offering extra features like clear parts and those special chest pieces for the shell unit. So while the Demitrainer isn't bad, it's definitely not exceptional. All that being said though, the one thing that this thing is without a doubt great for is customizability. You can combine it with parts from the regular Demitrainer and the options set to create your own custom Demitrainer. As the manual says, the members from the Earth House do not have the means to buy the latest Demitrainers, so they have instead taken to customizing the older Demitrainers to bring them somewhat up to spec with the newer ones. So far, Chuchu's unit is the only completed one, but I think that this is definitely an OC opportunity. Personally, I'm looking forward to equipping this thing with some extra weapons. Next up then, here it is next to the Gym 3 and Char Zaku 2, And finally, here it is next to the standard size Gym Custom and the always bulky Zaku 3. And that has been all for this review of this Not Scope Dog. Again, the link to buy one is down below. As always, a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.